Yeah, but like that one's taken. That one's open.
All of you guys taking the time to be here. Wanted to look to see who we have. We've got 9 ITS students for the spring, which means potentially 9 bachelor's degree graduates. I know I have at least Jeremiah and Steve and Musi are both in class right now, so I understand why they're not here. Nathan's probably still on his way up from Birchwood. So otherwise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's everybody, at least all the students that are accounted for. And then all the faculty advisors, I appreciate you guys being here. What's that?
I saw Dana on the.
Oh, Stephen is on. Okay, great. So what I want to do is give a quick little overview of what we're doing. You know, what's the purpose? What are we trying to accomplish here with ITS in the spring? As many of you know, we've been trying to tweak the ITS process over the last couple of years. And one of the things that I realized we needed to be doing was to bring the faculty advisors in much earlier and begin the even the students process earlier. So that's why we're starting this now as compared to waiting until Christmas break to start this process. What I had been doing in the past was giving the students kind of carte blanche to select a topic and a thesis, and then Stephen, I got one right here for you if you want to.
Right.
I can actually move to this side.
My note paper's coming too. So.
Okay. Is it better if I'm over here? Oh, all right. And so the students would pick their topic and their thesis, and they would then what would happen is they would bring in we would then bring in faculty advisors after that. And what would happen is the faculty advisors were coming in and saying, you know, if I had been here from the beginning, I probably would have advised against this topic, or I would have advised against this thesis. I think and so it became readily apparent last year that was the case. So what I wanted to do is pair up students with their faculty advisor early on, so you guys can get together and go through the topic selection process and thesis writing process together, rather than the student being on their own for that. So, and as a part of this, I wanted to also kind of walk through just a general process of getting from topic to thesis. Before I get into that, I want to give a quick overview of what we're trying to accomplish here. The purpose of the ITS program is as a capstone of the students' time here at Alaska Bible College. It is Integrated Theology Seminar, taking everything that they've learned while they're here to apply it to real world situations in ministry, in the world, in whatever it is that the Lord is going to be putting them into. And that culminates not just theology, but also their supervised ministry experience. In the case of Nathan Mugford, his student teaching experience, you know, all of those things that he's actually, that as the students have now kind of started to see, how are the things I'm learning in the classroom relate to the things that I'm actually experiencing in ministry out in the world. And so one thing what we've seen in the past is students think, oh, ITS research paper, this is a topic I get to research, that I get to find out this new thing about this new idea. And that's not the point. The point is not for the student to come up with some new thing to research or to find out about or to discover. The point is finding a topic that they are familiar with, that this is something that they've been wrestling with for the last 4 years in various classes, so that and really just exploring that topic that they already have a lot of knowledge about. In fact, what we're going to talk about here is as you're selecting a topic and starting to find that problem that you're trying to research, you have to first ask the question, what's missing? What what in the research is there a gap that I need to fill, type of thing. Now, only way to know that is if you've been in the research, if you've already done studies in various academic exercises in that, right? So that's part of it. The other side of this is, and I want to teach. I want all the students to understand this. I want to make sure that I'm recording. At least I thought I was recording.
Yeah, it's right up there.
Is it recording? Good. I want to make sure that all the students that aren't here catch this. And all of the professors that are around the table that have done the higher academic research type writing, particularly those of us with those terminal degrees where we had to write either a DMin, paper, project, dissertation, whatever, that research writing is not about solving problems. Research writing is about exploring problems. And I think that what ends up happening is as a bachelor's degree student, you have this idea that you're going to solve all the world's problems. A research paper is not going to solve any problem. You're never going to solve a problem with a research paper. The purpose of a research paper is to research that problem, is to look into that problem, to explore that problem. And so taking that burden of I need to solve this problem off of your shoulders, right? Now there will be when you get to the end, you're going to have recommendations. You're going to draw conclusions, but those conclusions are not going to solve the problem, right? That's really, I think that's been key for students to recognize that our job here is not to fix the world, right? At least not with this research paper, right? Your goal is to discover and to explore. Okay. So that being said, let's get into this. We're going to hit 5 points today. Those 5 points, you're going to start by choosing the topic. We're going to identify the research problem, what that means, asking research questions. Then we're stating the purpose, and then formulate a thesis. By the way, I can distribute at the end of this. I'll be sending out this PowerPoint, and I've got a handout. I'm going to also hand out that you'll have a PDF of as well. All right. Nope. There's Matthew J. Cote. All right. So choosing a topic. Let's talk a little bit about a topic. Okay. And I'm going to need there we go. Topics can be used to invent arguments and also to conceptualize and formulate the single sentence declarative thesis. So a topic is from the Greek topoi or topos, meaning place. And it's actually, when you think of a topic, it's the specific place in the subject area that you're in, right? So an area, if you think about a field or an area, right, of subject matter, right? It's a big thing. Let's take, for instance, Katie's doing worship arts, which is a field. Okay, that's a field of research. That's an area, subject. What you want to get is a topic, a place, a spot within that. What spot are you in? But not just what spot are you in, but when you get to that spot, what perspective are you going to be looking at that spot? How are you going to categorize that? So it's a topic. Here we're just looking at a noun. Okay, this is just a subject. We haven't done anything with it yet. We're just looking at a subject. So within the field of worship arts, could be contemporary Christian music is a topic. What you're going to do is you're going to narrow that down to where it's something that's bite-sized, something that can be done in a 30-page ITS research paper. Okay, so it needs to be more specific. You can't, the more specific the subject, the narrower that is, the more you can pinpoint your place on the map. That's what a topic is. A topic is a place on the map. If the subject area is the map, the topic is the place in the map. Okay. So topics, and by the way, this process is called invention. So just for your information. So you have topics of definition, determining how to classify the idea, right? What is it? What is contemporary Christian music? I'm not trying, I
Just writing down.
right, right.
Yes.
Yeah, write this down, write this down. You know, how would I define
Right,
this? How would one define that? That's a good topic. The definition of what is it? Division. How is it outlined? How is it in the segments or parts? Okay, how is it categorized? Comparison, contrast, putting two things together. Discipleship, children's ministry versus childcare, children's ministry. Right? You're exploring now the differences in the different philosophies of ministry. Expository preaching versus thematic subject matter preaching, right? That type of thing. All right, you're comparing, you're contrasting, cause and effect. We're noticing that this is causing this, or this is the effect of that, right? Circumstances, testimony. Okay, so these are just different types of topics that you might be thinking of, or ways to approach that. Okay, these, by the way, those are what are called general topics. These are then more special or specific topics. Is there something that's right or wrong about this? We would call that a judicial topic, right? You're actually making a judgment statement as to something is right or something is wrong. A deliberative, where is it worthy or advantageous or disadvantageous? Okay. Is there a virtue or vice involved? So those are just, by the way, these are all like real deep rhetorical points from Aristotle. So just trying to make them a little more. So how do I find a topic? Well, there's lots of different places you pull those topics from. Personal interest, your organizational support would be within your supervised ministry experience, your organization as in Alaska Bible College or the church that you're involved in. All right, you have organizational support for that topic. This is something that's near and dear to the heart of the people in this church. If it were Sutton Bible Church, it would probably be discipleship, generational discipleship, right? Ethical organizational support, ethical issues, things that you're like, I see that this is a problem. Children's ministry, you know, child protection policies, right? You know, there's a right and wrong. There's an ethical issue that I need to explore. Relevance of the study, is this something relevant to today? Anna, you're talking about doing some stuff with egalitarianism, complementarianism. That's some really important hot button issue. Relevance, contribution to the field. Is there something that needs to be contributed? Time constraints. These are real considerations that you need to worry about. Do I have the time to study that? All right. Doing a paper. There's a reason why, by the way, I didn't allow any of our Greek students to do any ITS papers in the field of Greek, because you don't have time to, or the requisite ability to. Well, I wanted to do a fresh translation of Aristotle's rhetoric and really get into that. Right? No, we're not doing that. We don't have the time or the energy to do that. Breadth and scope. Is this too big? Is it too small? This is where your faculty advisor's going to help come in alongside you. Okay, that may be too small of a thing, or that may be too big of a thing. You're trying to bite off too much. Breadth and scope. Economic factors. Is it something you say, well, I really want to see the effect of this missiologically on the various Athabascan tribes, tribal groups in Alaska. So that means I'm going to have to fly out to all of these different words just fell out of my head. Villages. Thank you. Wow. we're gonna have to go, I'm gonna have to fly out to all these villages. You don't have time or the finances to be able to do something like that. It's a bachelor's degree paper. This is a 1 semester paper. Okay, so all of those are considerations that you need to think about. Where are your sources selection? Your CMT. You guys have been all involved in CMT for the last 8 semesters. You guys have all done supervised ministry experience, or in Nathan's case, he's doing student teaching. All right. Your emphasis courses. Each of you are graduating with a particular emphasis. This is actually the first time, and with as many as 9 graduates, this is the first time that we're having a graduating class where everyone has a specialized emphasis. We've always had at least one student that was just, well, I'm just a general ed or general student. I'm just doing general emphasis. All of you have a special emphasis that you're doing, which means you've had at least 12 credit hours in a particular topic, in a particular field, or whatever, right? And then, of course, just general observations. As I hang around the school, the professors talk about this. This is something that I hear in a lot of classes. It's something that Dr. Dave talks about in chapel a lot. And it's something that I've just noticed is a problem or is an issue. Okay, so that's how you find your topic. So hopefully, as I'm going through this, you're starting to really hone in on, okay, that would be doable. Maybe that's something I could do. All right, you're gonna have like a list of here's some different potential topics I could be thinking about. All right, so then identifying the research problem, because ultimately a topic is just a topic. What you need is a problem to explore. Something that really is a problem is something that, or an issue is something that you're actually, that's, as I like to say, kicking the slats out of the churches today. It needs to have relevance. It needs to have, is this an actual problem? Okay. Just picking a topic that is interesting is not really, lacks the importance or value. That's something that this is a real issue that's dealing with, that the churches are dealing with. So we're going to talk about justification of the problem, deficiencies in the evidence, of identifying the audience, and defining of terms. Let's start here with identifying the research problem. Why is this research problem important? Okay, why is having a research problem important? First of all, it establishes the importance of the topic. This is important. You need to listen. As you're starting to write and people are reading, it's like, oh, wow, this is something I've seen in my church. This is something that I see as a problem. Your readers are going to need to readily identify, oh yeah, this is something really kicking the slats out of my church. I really need to find out what's going on with this. Okay, creates interest, and the reader interest. It focuses the reader's attention on how the study will add to their lives, to their ministries, and ultimately to the greater body of literature in the research, right? Should a problem be researched? All right, is this something that really needs to be researched? Is this really a problem? So first of all, can you study it? Is it something that's possible to be studied? Is it too big a problem? Is it too small a problem? Is it too ambiguous of a problem? Okay. Do you have access to the research? Do you have the skills, time, and resources to carry out that research? These are all real questions you need to ask yourself. I think sometimes this may be an area that a lot of students fail at the very beginning, at the outset. They either overestimate their abilities to research a problem, and many times it's because they themselves don't really know enough about the topic to actually know what the problems really are. Okay. And this is one of the reasons why I'm bringing the faculty advisors in now rather than later, because what has happened in the past is faculty advisor comes in, students already picked their topic. They said, this is what I want to research. And the faculty advisor comes in and says, you don't have a clue what you're talking about. You don't know anything about this subject. You're not going to have the time in one semester to even scratch the surface of this topic. You don't have the background. You don't have the resources. All right. So that's a big thing. All right. Should you study this problem? Does it advance the knowledge of something, or does it contribute to the practice of something? Is this actually valuable, or is it more frivolous You know, I want to study the proper use of the imperative particle in Hebrew. It's like I want to get that to figure out what that is. Is that relevant? Is that something that really should be studied? Maybe by somebody. I don't know. So I'm sure somebody's got to fill the pages of the Journal of Biblical Literature, but probably not for a BA thesis, right? So does it contribute to practice? Is this something that really is going to contribute to my church, to my own ministry? Really ask that question. I think that's more personal than anything. Is this going to be something to contribute to my own ministry moving forward? All right, so let's identify this research problem. Research problem is an area of conflict, concern, or controversy, a gap between what is wanted and what is observed. Right? There's a problem. There's something that's like there's a gap between what ought to be and what is. And here's where as you've gone through your 4 years of Bible college, you've probably gotten a whole lot of the way it ought to be. You get a lot of ideal situations. You get a lot of, this is the way it should be. This is how it ought to be up here in the classroom. And you get out there to your supervised ministry experience, you're like, that's not how it is at all. There's a gap here. There's a problem. That why isn't this working out in real world situations? That's what we want to explore. Okay. A clear statement of the problem, that the problem exists. So it should include a clear statement that the problem exists. Evidence that supports the existence of the problem. Evidence of an existing trend that has led to the problem, right? You're going to be kind of thinking about this as you're thinking about the topic. Can you identify this? Definitions of major concepts and terms, all right, which we're going to get to in a second. We'll get to definition of terms. Clear description of the setting, probable causes related to the problem. A specific feasible statement, and your research problem is going to end up with an actual statement. Here is the problem. I've identified the problem. I know everything about the problem. Okay, I can identify the problem. Right? Then is this actually a real problem? Justifying the problem. Right, justification, the evidence and relevance from the literature published or archival data showing that the problem exists. This is one of the areas that I think a lot of BA students, especially, where they find there's a perceived problem. Turns out it's not an actual problem. Right? There's a perceived problem that doesn't turn out to be an actual problem, or there's a problem that you think exists because it was a pet peeve of your professor, right? And you get out to the churches and you start to say, hey, what about this? And they're like, what is that? That's not even a problem to us. Like, oh, that was just something that my professor got all upset about. And believe me, I'm one of those ones that does that. Get all upset about things that you get out to the real world and you're like, yeah, nobody out there actually cares about that. All right, it's not a problem to them. Justification based on what other researchers have found. You really need to know, has someone looked at this? Because here's the deal. And I think this is I'll say this is an epidemic in not just in colleges and universities. This is an epidemic in the evangelical church. And I think it's an occupational hazard of our severe autonomous nature and independence, that each churches are so isolated among themselves that we think we're the only ones who experience this, or we're the only ones who have the solution to this problem or whatever it is, right? And it's like, no, this has been researched by lots of people. There's lots of actual research out there. You just need to know where to get to it. You need to find it. You probably haven't had even just to scratch the surface of, there's research out there. There's periodicals and articles. I know for a fact there's lots of stuff about CCM and that whole issue. Lots of stuff has been written about Bethel and Hillsong and all of that, right? You can find lots of it. When Rebecca Howe gets here for the Apologetics Conference, just tap her. She'll tell you all about the research that's there. Okay, so sometimes this is finding a person that is that is has already looked into this. By the way, a real good way to do this is you find one source. Let's say you find a journal article of some sort that's talking about this. Go to the bottom of that. There's this thing called a bibliography. That bibliography is all the things that researcher researched to write that paper. It's a real good way to find other avenues of research for that problem, for that subject. Okay. So justification based on what other research found, justification on personal workplace experiences. Right? You've seen this problem in action. You actually have anecdotally, you can say, I saw this problem. It happened in a church that I was actually involved in. Justification based on thorough examination of scripture. Again, this is where you're going to say, man, I really studied this in classes and I don't see it happening in the churches. Why not? Okay. All right, so looking for evidence, the deficiencies in the evidence. What does this mean? It means that there's something that we as in the church still need to know about this. We haven't figured it out yet. There's a deficiency in the literature itself. What else do we need to know to improve practice? This is a little bit more advanced. This is more like when you start to get into advanced graduate and postgraduate work, you're going to be able to actually identify the gap in the research, right? This is where you're actually you're reading through doctoral dissertations, you're reading through periodicals, you're reading through other academic research, and you go down to the last chapter, last couple of paragraphs of that article, there will be things that are called recommendations, where they'll say, this still needs to be researched. My research did all of this, and here's what still needs to happen. That's where you're going to get really good areas of further research that need to be done. Okay. By the way, in your ITS paper, you're going to have a section that's recommendations, things that still need to be researched. Right. Identifying the audience. This is going to be key to you being able to write a thesis. Is who is it that this is addressing? Who is really the people that this is for, right? Who will profit from the reading of this study, reading of your research paper? Say Dr. Olson, because he's the one giving the grade. So that's the answer. There would be other researchers, people who are also interested in this. All right, your faculty advisor is going to be one of your readers. Other faculty advisors in this room will also be your readers. Because there's so many of you, I'm probably not going to have the full breadth of everybody reads everybody's paper. More than likely, each faculty member is only going to read maybe 2 or 3 papers in preparation for the world offense. Okay, practitioners, those who are doing the ministry, all right? Who's actually doing this? In the case of someone doing a paper on apologetics, who are the apologists out there that need to know about this? Policymakers, those administrating ministries, elder boards, deacon boards, pastors, denominational heads, right? Those who are actually making policy decisions. Special populations, i.e., those who are being ministered to, right? Is this key for parents, like you're doing a thing on children's ministry? Is this something parents need to be aware of? Is this something that teens need to be aware of? I know I've talked to Mark a couple times. We're looking at how does this work with teens, and how do we teach biblical hermeneutics to teens? Okay, teenagers or women's ministries, right? So there's special populations that you may be directing this toward. All right. All right. All right, then defining your terms. What are the special terms here that's just jargon? You need to be able to define all of those. Okay, there are certain terms that come along with your particular field that your readers may not be aware of, or if they are, and here's the key, it's not that they don't know what that word is, they need to know how you're using it. because you may be using it differently than what they're used to hearing it. We actually did this, I think one of the oral defenses, either this year or last year, the year before, there was a particular word or phrase that the ITS student was using, and we had to like come together okay, this person's using this term this way. It may be used in a different way in some other fields. Okay, so that's something to be careful of when you're writing a research paper. You're defining terms not just simply because your readers don't know what that word is. They need to know how you're using that word as compared to how they might use that word, or how is that word different in this field as compared to another field. To avoid using unnecessary jargon, or when you do use that jargon, to be able to, authenticity in worship. What does that even mean, authenticity in worship? How do you define that? What's your definition? How would you be able to identify that? Okay. To avoid misunderstandings in the use of specific terms. And then to avoid theological confusion. Okay. All right, so we've identified the research problem. Now we need to ask research questions. So you've got your topic. Now you've identified the problem that topic is pointing to. Now you're going to ask research questions. We'll talk about all these different types of questions that you could have: questions of fact, definition, quality, and jurisdiction. We'll get into those in a second. So types of research questions. Central question a central question is the overarching question you explore in the research study. That's going to be, you can actually formulate a thesis in the form of a question, right? What is the implications of this thing, whatever, right? That's a good way to formulate a thesis, is in the form of a question. That might be a central question to your thing. In fact, you could probably even, when you're thinking about a thesis, if you can formulate a thesis in the form of a question, it's a good way to even think about your thesis. Maybe that in the end you don't actually write your thesis as a question, but if you can formulate it as a central question that you're going to be answering, that's a good way to think about a thesis. So sub questions under that, then that question necessitates other smaller questions to be able to answer that bigger question. What questions do I need to ask or answer or have answered before I can answer that big question? Okay. So there's sub questions about issues, narrow the focus of the central question. And procedural sub questions indicate the steps to be used in analyzing the data, right? How do I get to that answer? I need to ask subsequent questions to answer that. All right. This is different. These research questions are different than the interview questions, or somewhat different than the interview questions that you're going to be asking of your primary research participants. So what you're going to be doing is, by the way, just a quick overview here. The ITS paper consists of 3 major parts. Okay, there's obviously an introduction and conclusion; those are also on there. But the 3 major parts are the biblical theological basis. You're gonna give me maybe 10 pages on the biblical exegetical basis for your research problem. Okay, where can I find it in Scripture? Does Scripture have a mandate for researching this thing? The second major section is going to be your secondary research, or also called the literature review, where you're actually going to be getting into the academic research, current academic research, getting into periodicals and theological journals and dissertations and other things that's what Mrs. Maxwell is going to help you with. One of the reasons why we're doing this now, so that she can help you with those things now, and so you can start gaining resources and getting into those things. Okay. The third part then is your primary research, which is interviewing people who actually have boots on the ground in that particular field. where you're going to interview people who are experts in that field. And maybe that they're not experts, but they are eyewitnesses to whatever phenomenon you're trying to look for. Okay, they've seen it, they know it, they're witnesses of it, right? When you put together your interview questions for those people, they're going to be kind of based on your research questions, because you're going to be just asking them, how do you see this problem, or what do you think about this problem, right? But those questions are going to be formulated off of that. They're going to be asked probably in a little bit different way than you would ask as a formal research question. You'll want to make that more, how can I ask follow-up questions, that type of thing, right? Yeah.
Question, are all of these papers to be quantitative?
Qualitative. They're all qualitative. The quantitative would mean that they're conducting surveys and trying to analyze.
So the research is not surveys, that kind of thing?
No, this would not be surveys. This would be
interviews.
These are interviews. It's all qualitative. We don't have the time to teach them how to do T tables and statistical analysis and all that stuff.
I just thought by the interview thing that maybe they had a quantitative side.
Yeah, no quantitative side. It's just qualitative interview. Yeah. I mean, as their faculty advisor, if you feel like what they're looking for is better fitted with a survey, and you want to help them learn or understand how to evaluate that survey, it's such a field of inquiry. Even just formulating a survey properly to get good results is a whole process in and of itself. All right. Good question though. All right. So what kind of questions am I going to ask? There's a ton of kinds of questions that you need to be asking. In fact, one person said, or one has said, that research is not about answering the questions, it's about asking the right questions. That research is really about asking the right questions. So when you're looking at this problem, these are the questions that you're going to be asking in order to what do I need to ask about this problem? Is the problem real or imagined? These are questions of fact. Is it a real problem or is it an imagined problem? Is it something that is a felt need as compared to a real need? Right? Did something actually happen? What are the facts? How did it begin? What are its causes? What changed to create the problem or issue? Can it be changed? Okay, those are all questions of fact that you're trying to explore.
I'll just add one to that.
Yeah.
How could the solution be implemented? Might be a good lead.
Yeah, we're going to get to. In fact, when we talk about the recommendations, that will be part of that. Yeah. That'll be at the end of their research.
All right.
Yeah, that'll be at the end of their research. This is as they're beginning to even just formulate the questions about what the problem they're looking at, right? Okay, so maybe I'll ask this way: where did we observe our data, and are these sources reliable? How do we know that these sources are reliable? Okay, is there an actual problem? Questions of definition. What is the nature of the problem? What exactly is the problem? What kind of problem is it? To what larger class of things or events does this problem belong? Is this a smaller issue of a bigger problem that's in the church? Been a while since I've given an illustration. The Christian nationalism in our churches today. Right, that's a huge issue. It's a big hot button issue. Okay, what's the larger class? What are its parts? Trumpism and all of that. How are they related? It may also be useful to ask critical questions of your research. What is influencing our definition of what this problem or issue is? In the field of CCM, is it the radio? Is it Christian labels or music? Music labels. Is it CCLI? Who is it that's causing the problem? or influencing our definitions of the problem, excuse me. How are these sources, beliefs influencing our definition? What is qualitative questions? How serious is the problem? Is this a problem that is mildly serious, or is this a serious, we've got to answer this? By the way, this does not, we're not evaluating whether or not this is a valuable thing to study. It may be that it's valuable to study. It's just, this isn't going to end the church as we know it if this thing happens, right? Or if this thing is happening. Is it a good or a bad thing? Is it, might it affect, or who might it affect? You know, who are the stakeholders involved here? Is it going to affect pastors? Is it going to affect youth ministers? Is it going to affect, who is it going to affect? What happens if we don't do anything? What are the costs to solving the issues? Is this, I know, Dan, you did your DMin related to technology. That's a massively costly, could be massively costly in implementing some of those things, right? Okay, I'll move on to the next one here. And then jurisdiction, what should be done about that problem? What should be done? Should action be taken? Should be in, who should be involved in helping to solve the problem or issue? What needs to happen to solve this problem? Again, you're not necessarily going to come up with solutions to these questions. You're asking these questions. And again, as this translates to interviews, as you're translating this to you don't want to answer this. You want your primary research people to answer this question for you. You're going to go to talk to women in ministry and say, so what do you think what do you think should be done? What do you think should be done? What should we do about this? Right? Again, you're doing that inquisitively. You're doing that to explore, not necessarily to actually answer the question. You're just looking at, well, here's the different sides of this. This group here, they think that this should be done this way. This group over here, they think it should be solved this way, right? And they're going to come together and say, yeah, well, there's the problem. We have different solutions that are here. Okay. All right. So we asked this research question now, stating the purpose. How do I state the, so a purpose statement then, a purpose statement is you're saying the purpose of this study is to do what? What is your purpose? To get an A in ITS so I can graduate. Yeah. All right, this is a single sentence. This is now your central phenomenon. This is a central point that you're trying to get to. You're going to use words like explore, understand, or discover. The purpose of this paper, this study, is to explore or understand this problem, to explore this issue. Okay. You're going to identify the participants or research subjects, among whom. Okay, this is the purpose of this study is to explore this problem among evangelical pastors in the valley, among children's ministry workers in evangelical churches in the valley, right? You see where that's your research subject, or those are the participants. And then the research place in the valley, in Alaska, in what we're going to do is I'm going to tell you already that your place is in the valley. Your place is here in Alaska. You're not going to be exploring, how is this done in Timbuktu, or how is this done in France, or how is this done somewhere else? You don't have the time, energy, or resources to explore those things in those other places. All right. In fact, what I will tell you right now is that means that you also have a built-in recommendation at the end. At the end of your research, you're going to have a recommendation at the end that this was done among pastors here in the Valley of Alaska. Other researchers are going to need to come along and see if this is true in other places, right? Is it true elsewhere in Alaska? Is it true elsewhere in the United States? That type of thing. All right, so that's your purpose, stating your purpose. And so far you have, I didn't put another slide in there. We've chosen a topic. Okay, remember that's a place that you're going to be studying from. That's your perspective. Then you're identifying the research problem. That's the thing that is kicking the slats out of the church that you want to explore. There's a problem. There's a gap between what ought to be and what is. Then asking those research questions. What do I need to know about this? What do we need to is this a real issue? What's the size of the issue? That type of thing. And then we stated a purpose statement. In this study, or this study proposes to explore this issue among whatever your research participants are here in the Valley in Alaska. Then we're ready now to formulate an actual thesis. A thesis is actually, I think the best way to think about it is short for hypothesis. A hypothesis in a scientific world, in a empirical science world or observational science world, is you formulate a hypothesis. What you think is the answer. What you think is what the conclusion is going to be. Here's what I'm pretty sure is the actual problem. Your thesis is going to explore that. Okay. Ultimately, a thesis must say something about the real world. It's your statement. This is what it is. Right? The thesis states what the writer sees as the main cause, main effect, various causes and effects of a condition or event. In other words, you're going to essentially predict what your outcome is going to be. This is what you're formulating to say, I'm pretty sure this is the problem. Now you're going to go find out if that actually is the problem. This is what you're going to go research. I'm saying this is it. All right, let's go see if it is. And along the way, you very well may tweak that thesis. Along the way, you may rewrite that thesis. Along the way, you may throw that thesis out and say, this is the actual thesis now, right? All right, so 5 common topics are theses. Theses is the proper plural for thesis. Theses. Not the ship of. Not the ship of. That's thesis. All right, so definitions definition, analogy, consequence, value, policy. Let's look at these. A thesis of definition. What is or was the problem? It answers that question. So again, think of a thesis in terms of question answer. Can you ask a question that has an answer? Okay, the thesis is the answer to the question. You can formulate the thesis in the form of a question, just like on Jeopardy, right? But otherwise, you want to say it in the form, your thesis is a statement of truth about reality. A thesis of analogy. What is the problem like or unlike? This is just like this over here. That's a thesis. Thesis of consequence. What caused or will cause that problem or issue? Thesis of value. What is the importance of that problem or issue? Thesis of policy. What must be done about the problem or issue? Okay. So then we're going to write a strong thesis statement. Now you're ready to actually write a strong thesis statement. Strong thesis statement takes a stand. It draws the line in the sand and says, this is true. You're already forming. Now, the point here is, remember, you've already done a lot of the research on this. You've already done all the preliminary research on this. This is something that's in your wheelhouse. You're going to take a stand on something. And then you go out and prove it.
Rock the boat.
What's that?
Rock the boat.
Rock the boat. That's right. Rock the boat. A strong thesis statement shows your conclusions about your research problem. Again, you're predicting your conclusion is what you're doing. A strong thesis statement creates discussion. Right? It needs to be able to generate discussion. I love when we have an ITS paper that doesn't conclude with wow, that student did such a good job. They really answered all those questions. Next student. What I'm hoping for is, oh boy, let's talk about that. That's something we really. In fact, you can always tell because the panel will you can tell the kinds of questions the panel is asking of that research, because it really excited them. It really got them going and like, well, now wait a minute, hold on about this, and everybody's now talking about it. Creates discussion. It expresses so a strong thesis statement expresses the one main idea. It's not all over the place. It's not nebulous. It's not ambiguous. It's specific and to the point, direct, and states the thing in one main idea. And the strong thesis is specific. All right, get specific. Again, this will be on your in the PowerPoint that I'm going to send out to everybody, so everybody will have this. But if you think of this in terms of a flow from one side to the other, you start with a topic or a subject area, right? Narrow that down, then your research paper, or excuse me, research problem, your concern, your issue, your problem, something that needs a solution. The justification, what's the evidence? Evidence from literature, evidence from scripture, evidence from practical experience. The deficiency is the body of evidence, what is missing, okay? Or what needs to be done about it. Relating the discussion to the audience, who am I addressing? Who's going to read this thing? Definition of terms. What terms does the audience need to know, or need to know how you're defining something? The purpose, what is it you're trying to accomplish, and what is your thesis? What are you hoping to prove? Okay. Now, these next two slides I have printed out for you, because what I've done is I've gone through this entire thing in the form of questions.
Oh, is it a quiz?
What's that? No, it's not a quiz.
It is too a
This
quiz.
is a worksheet. This is to help you
Are we
go
graded on
to
this?
think through your problem.
Are we graded on this?
No. Well, yeah, you're gonna be great on it.
This is what we're on.
Yes.
Again, I will be sending this out also in PDF form. But you'll be able to walk through your problem with, or your topic to thesis with your faculty advisor. My goal here is for you to be able to sit down with your faculty advisor. Maybe you go through this worksheet yourself, then make an appointment with your faculty advisor. Or make an appointment, if you're like, I don't know, I'm completely lost, I'm going to make an appointment with my faculty advisor and we're going to go through this together. Or your faculty advisor is completely lost and you're going to help walk your faculty advisor through this.
It's gonna be like the blind leading the blind.
All right. So,
Sorry.
so as you're thinking through this is just a way to help you think through the process. Is really what this is all about. Okay, this is a worksheet. It's not a quiz. It's not your no grade on this. This is you thinking through the process with your faculty advisor. So start out with, what is my subject area or emphasis? That's already been answered for you. That's why you're with the faculty advisor you're with. I've already sat down in interview fashion with each one of you and determined that. Okay, that's the subject area you're in. That's the subject area you're stuck with. If you want to change that, you need to come see me, so that I can either reassign you a new faculty advisor or something like that. Okay, so your subject area is your emphasis. It's your area that you're in. Okay. All right. What topic within my subject or emphasis do I want to explore? What's my topic? What place do I want to be on the map? All right. What problem or issue is apparent in this topic? There's a gap. What's the gap between what ought to be and what is? Should the problem be researched? Can I study the problem? Do I have access to the research? Okay, some of these are just yes or no questions. Do I have the time, resources, and skills to carry out this research? If the answer to any of those is no, go back to the beginning and start over. Find a new topic. Find a new problem. Should I study this problem or issue? Does it advance the knowledge? Does it contribute to practice? Is it relevant? Is it substantive? Does it actually, is it something that actually needs to be done? All right, what is the justification for my research problem? Where did I get this from? Is it justified based on my study of scripture? Is it justified based on my observations of what's going on in the church or my ministry? Is it justified based on other academic research you've done, like a book you read or something like that? Right? Right. What deficiencies are there in the evidence? You know some of the books. You know, so as you start to work with Mrs. Maxwell, she's going to help you, guide you to. She's not going to do it for you. She's going to help guide you to discover resources that you're going to be able to see. And as you further develop this, you're going to say, "Oh, okay, there's some real deficiencies in the research here." Okay. One that happened a couple years ago was Rachel Christensen, and she started looking into her topic, which was spiritual warfare taught in churches, and especially from an evangelical perspective. And what she found was there's a severe deficiency in the research. And she was like, all I can find is a couple of books from 1972. Maybe a smaller, like Chip Ingram wrote a book kind of recently, like within the last 30 years. Right. So what deficiencies are there in the knowledge? What do we still need to know? What do we still need to improve practice? Who is my audience? Right. That's a big question for you to answer. Who's your audience that you're writing to, and who is the person or who are the stakeholders that it involves? What terms need to be defined for my audience to understand the problem? You're going to start a list of terms that you feel like you need to define. Go ahead and start that list now. What research questions need to be asked? Okay, you're going to start formulating those questions. Is the problem real or imagined? What is the nature of the problem? How serious is the problem? What should be done about the problem? All right. Then what is my purpose statement? The person, you fill in the blank here. The purpose of the study is to explore, understand, discover what, and then and what I would say then is after this is put among who or among whom, among who's your subject, who's the audience, right? Who's the stakeholders, and of course then the where, which is here in the valley, here in Alaska. All right. Now, what is my thesis statement? Now you're ready to answer the question. What is the problem? What is the problem? What is the problem like? What causes the problem? What is the importance of the problem? What must be done about the problem? Those are different questions you can ask about your thesis. Now you're ready to formulate a strong thesis statement where you're taking a stand and saying, this is the issue, here's the problem, here's what we need to do about it. That type of thing. Again, you're predicting what the outcome of your paper is going to be. And again, like a hypothesis would be, you're proposing this is the issue or this is the thing. But remember, you're not here to solve the problem. You're here to explore that problem. So even when you're making your statement, don't make it so declarative that you later on say, wow, I really stepped in it. I really thought this was the problem. Turns out it's not. Right? Any questions? Wow, I must have really thoroughly went over it. I mean, it must be so thorough that you're like, wow, no questions.
Did you have examples? Are you gonna make some examples or provide examples of theses?
I don't have any off the top. I mean, I can make some up, but I would be making them up.
I just wondered
Mhm.
how they, I mean, we can look at past ITS papers, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure that they would be exactly what
Mm-hmm.
you want. I
Yeah.
guess that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I could come up with some. I don't have any right now.
And the ones that were done like last year, those would be good examples. Or, yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
We didn't go through this process last year. That's why I want to do this process, is so that we start out with good thesis statements.
I guess I'm still slightly confused about So this seems like a merge between like a master's or PhD thesis and just a research paper, right?
Yeah.
'Cause it's not just a research
Right.
paper.
Right.
So,
It's kind of a cross between a research paper and a thesis. Yeah.
right.
But really a research paper in the fact that they're studying a particular issue or problem, not a thesis as in, here's my thoughts on the subject, right? Where I'm less interested in their thoughts on the subject, which would be more of what a thesis paper would be. Does that make sense?
So,
Because that's more like an essay. This is not an essay, that's for sure.
right.
So this is more meta-analysis.
Yeah.
It would seem to me, Ben, that in some ways, the thesis statement, some research and work has to be done prior to coming up with that hypothesis,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And then the hypothesis may radically change through the research.
Right.
So what they turn into you as a thesis statement may in fact not be their thesis statement
Right.
at all.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, this is their putting together in fact, the way we're going to do it in the spring is you're actually going to do two separate three really separate processes. You're going to start out with your biblical theological, right? You're going to turn that in. You're going to do your lit review. And then you're going to put together this small chapter that you're going to do. It's like 1 page long. And it's your research design proposal. Because really, all of that work up to that point is just up here in the cloud. You're in scripture, you're in the research, you're in the academic research, you're still in the ideal. This is the way it ought to be. The real crux of this paper is you're going out and doing academic primary research, qualitative primary research, which is you're doing conducting interviews with individuals. This is, and I don't even like to use the word interview. The reason I don't like to use the word interview, because you've done interviews with different people before in more of an anecdotal sense, right? I know Dr. Dan, I don't, do you still have marriage and family? Do you still have them do interviews with married couples?
And divorced couples.
Okay. I mean, that's a really good step in that right direction, where you're conducting primary research among people who have an eyewitness of some phenomena, right? But that's uninformed to begin with, because you're just going and asking questions without any backup, without any like purpose. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase it. I don't mean to say that you're not doing it without purpose. I'm saying that the purpose of doing that theological framework, the lit review, is you now have like questions you're asking. Most likely the questions that you're asking those people, Dan's already come up with those questions. He says, here, ask these questions. Because Dan already did all the research, right? Dr. Dan did all the research for you. You're formulating those questions because you're the researcher now. Okay, that's what I mean by that. You're now the one going out with purpose to say, okay, I need to discover this issue, this problem, right? It's not just inquisitive. It's not just anecdotal. You're not just getting information that you can put together. You're actually studying a problem and need to get those answers. So what you're going to do is, by the time we get to spring break next semester, you're going to have put together a research proposal to say, I'm going to go and conduct these interviews with these people to determine the real world effect of this problem with these people. Does that make sense?
So basically, following up on that, so
Yeah.
the thesis will change. I guess my question that I'm just following up on that is, obviously they're trying to come up with their like initial thesis, research direction. So this will give them, so once they start next semester, they will be able to start their exegetical, do their lit review.
Right.
In that process, they're readjusting their thesis if need be.
Right.
So is the thesis that they present at the end, is that the thesis that they come up with up to that point of lit review and exegetical, and then prove it, disprove it with their research. And so then
Mhm.
their thesis doesn't change, I'm assuming, at that point, because that's then you're going to say, well,
Right.
this was proved or
Right,
this was
exactly.
disproved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so the initial thesis you're coming up with right now is a preliminary, what would be considered a preliminary thesis. You're
So that's
just,
the one that can change.
what's that? That's the one that can change, yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, I'm gonna change my thesis because I found out all this stuff.
Right, right.
It just kind of.
Yeah, no, once you get to that primary research, that's again, the idea is this is what we're going to find out. These are this is what's going to answer that question that burning question we're looking for, right? Any other
So
questions?
just make sure I got that right. So we're doing some preliminary research, and then we come up with the thesis statement and the proposal
So-
and research, and then we go out and
Right,
really.
so here's the point, they've already done all that.
Yeah.
And they've done their preliminary research in the fact that they're a student of Alaska Bible College.
Right.
Right, you've already done your emphases, you've already done your, you should know about your topic already. That's where we're kind of changing that a little bit, because we did have a student last semester that, and again, I don't mind telling you about it because I point to myself that it was my fault and not hers. Linda Moyer wanted to do biblical counseling. And in the end, she did a phenomenal job. She did a great job. I did her a great disservice by allowing her to do that. And here's the reason why. She didn't have any background in it. She hadn't done an emphasis in it. She hadn't done her supervised ministry experience didn't have anything to do with it. And so when she got into it, I paired her up with Larry Severson, and she spent the better part of half of a semester just formulating a thesis, a proper thesis, because she had to do a crash course in biblical counseling, like the field of biblical counseling, before she could even start. Each of these students has already had when I say this is the field that you're already in, because you already know, they should already have a grasp of the problem. So their preliminary research equals 4 years of Alaska Bible College, and including supervised ministry experience and their emphasis classes. Okay. Any other questions? All right, I don't want to keep you guys any longer than I have to. So I appreciate you guys coming. I'm gonna, this will be recorded. I will download it. I'll get it up onto YouTube as soon as I can. I will also post, or probably just email it to you, because I can't just post it to the class because the class isn't open to you yet. So I'll just email it to the faculty and to the students, both this PowerPoint presentation and a PDF of the worksheet. Okay. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys.